So we will start with our common introduction. We have entered the Anthropocene. We are the Anthropocene. We are the Earth community, the acidification of the ocean, rising sea levels, extinction of species, pandemics, famines, soil pollution, wildfires, migration, floods, droughts, widespread urbanization, social inequality. The list is infinite. We no longer control our impact. Everything around us is shifting, and whether we like it or not, we are exploring our own lives and environment anew. What do we want to express from our close environments? Through our daily practices, our lives, what offends our moral conscience and our sense of justice, what makes us angry or happy, what are our ideas, and how do we intend to change the situation? Do we feel like Earthlings? Let's speak up, give our opinion, engage in dialogue. For this session, we want to work with Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela, Chile, Suriname, Guyana, Uruguay, Cabo Verde, Greenland, Bolivia, Paraguay, the Dominican Republic, Guadeloupe, and Martinique Islands. As the 16 previous sessions, the many previous sessions, we will follow a process that is first to watch a series of video clips produced in the framework of the School of Anthropocene, and then we will speak with our guests coming from the above-mentioned countries. So we will start with the video clips first.
Ocarina, Castillo. Hablo desde Venezuela y agradezco este espacio. ¿Cómo enfrentamos nosotros el antropoceno? Asumiendo que es un desafío a la certeza, a los conocimientos adquiridos, a las regularidades estadísticas, que es una necesidad enorme de desarrollar nuevas epistemologías para entender la complejidad y para poder mirar la vida como una trama en la cual lo biológico, lo ecológico, lo social y lo cultural forman parte de un tejido indisolublemente ligado, inseparable y que requiere del respeto y de la comprensión mutua. Aprender que tenemos que pensar de una manera distinta nuestro habitar y que eso significa repensar todas nuestras relaciones, las interculturalidades, la ética, los valores, las intersubjetividades, redefinir la ciudadanía y esta vez entender la ciudadanía como una ciudadanía ecológica, como una ciudadanía planetaria. Y comprender también que hay responsabilidades compartidas y diferenciadas y una suerte de intercambio ecológico desigual que hace que sea necesario desarrollar nuevas voces y nuevas narrativas que nos permitan comprender desde nuestras especificidades nuestros problemas, nuestros proyectos y nuestras esperanzas. Para todo ello es importante descolonizar nuestros imaginarios. Descolonizar nuestros imaginarios frente a la idea del crecimiento ilimitado, del desarrollo unilineal, del pensamiento único, frente a la radicalización de las desigualdades que se expresan frente al sexo, frente a la raza, frente al género, frente a las religiones, frente a las culturas. Reemprender la crítica de esas estructuras patriarcales y colonialistas que se han venido repitiendo a lo largo de nuestro proceso histórico. En síntesis, desterrar de nuestra mente la estructura del monocultivo y, para decirlo en términos ecológicos, hablar de la biodiversidad de nuestra mente. Para nosotros, en un país con los problemas de la Venezuela de hoy, esta es una tarea enorme, de grandes dimensiones, un gran reto, de grandes dificultades, pero en la que también están puestas nuestras esperanzas. Gracias.
First of all, I would like to thank the translator, who, despite not knowing my language, is making an effort to help me communicate. Hopefully this exchange will work. We are environmentally displaced people, looking for asylum or refuge. The term environmental displaced people is the most commonly used to define these groups and includes both those displaced by sudden disasters and those running away because of the gradual deterioration of environmental conditions. We have been displaced from our specific ecology where we co-evolve with other inhabitants. We find ourselves in a situation of helplessness, homelessness, in search at least of affection. We are only looking for a home that can protect us from the universe. The nations, which should protect us from these situations, are marginalizing us, even though we're the media stars in the whole world. Because of our presence you withdraw. The belief in infinite growth at an economic level, at a territorial level, doesn't seem so realistic by now. Perhaps we allow them to confront a problem, only to their eyes, facing their uncertainties, stopping projections. They talk about my brothers as if we were the same being. I thought that the right to be considered as an individual would be granted by now. But asylum does not come, despite that we knock on the doors of more than 100 countries. They say that we are the result of the Anthropocene. In fact, the Anthropocene only forced us to move and bond with other species that were not in our ecology. However, we are not a result of anything, but of stories of entanglements with other human and non-human beings. We know that we have frightened them, like any otherness, haven't we? But perhaps we overestimated you, or you underestimated us. Now we have to learn to live together, looking for new ways to generate relationships that are healthy. What hurts us most about all this is that all the bureaucracies have relegated us. They didn't consider our existence before producing massive dismantling of natural territories. And here we are, infinitely small beings, imperceptible to the rise of those who retreat. Could this be multi-species justice? All your classifications that I understand from human science are arranged according to your extractivist, destructive ways of making being living. Let us find a way to be well together. It is not necessary to continue annihilating everything that you do not understand, or think you understand. Our most sincere thanks for this space. We hope you can understand our message. End of communication.
Eu falo do Brasil, país que é terra da floresta atlântica, do Pantanal, de mais outras tantas maravilhas da natureza. Mas eu falo em um momento muito difícil. Em 2020, nós batemos recordes de desmatamento, de fogo e de grilagem. Grilagem que é a prática de posse ilegal da terra para o cultivo de soja, para o cultivo de pasto. Em um ano tão difícil para todo o planeta, nós, brasileiros, nos cansamos de ver imagens de floresta queimando, animais carbonizados, vida sendo perdida. Tudo isso graças a um governo negacionista, que ignora a preciosidade da nossa terra e deixa para a humanidade um futuro incerto. Não somente para a humanidade, o planeta é de todos os seres que aqui vivem. Mas só nós, espécie humana, somos diretamente responsáveis por toda essa destruição. E essa culpa é política. Os líderes que elegemos são incapazes de ver para além do lucro imediato. São incapazes de ver a dor e a destruição às quais subjugam o nosso planeta. O futuro da Terra é político. O futuro da Terra é de respeito com a natureza. O futuro da Terra é coletivo. Sem políticas claras que preconizem a preservação das nossas riquezas naturais, veremos cada vez mais catástrofes ambientais e o caminho em direção ao futuro obscurecido. Já não há mais tempo, já não há mais futuro sem a mudança política necessária que visa a preservação da vida, de todas as vidas.
Me estoy... Sí. Es muy tenso, así que para poder hablar con ustedes me estoy moviendo.
Bon, on n'a pas pu voir le dernier film en entier, mais c'est...
Apparently we haven't had we've had a technical problem and we cannot see the last video clip, so thank you for being here with us. So we're lucky to be with Pablo Mendez from Argentina. You have made one of the movies, Ocarina Castillo from Venezuela. She's also in one of the movies. And we've got two other people, Manoel Pestana and Germano. You've also made video clips and you're here with us. And the last guest, Cristian Simonetti, you're from Chile. Shall we start with you, Cristian? Are you with us?
Hola, ¿me escuchan?
Sí. Bonsoir, Cristian.
¿Preferirían que hable en español o en inglés?
En inglés.
You should speak. I mean, if you can you speak English?
Inglés o francés.
Decídense cómo. All right. Well, thank you so much. My connection for some reason is very unstable. So I guess I have my 3 minutes now, no?
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Well, there was one important thing that resonated through the questions in relation to...
Cristian, vous m'entendez?
Can you hear me, Cristian? Apparently, you're not with us anymore. If it's a matter of seconds, I'll take the opportunity to introduce you. You're a Chilean researcher. You work in Chile and in Europe, and you're interested in issues connected with the materiality of Anthropocene in order to have another way of understanding the Earth. So it was interesting for us to speak with you in order to understand your viewpoint. That gives me the opportunity to speak directly with Pablo. You have directed one of the movies we've seen. You are in Argentina. More precisely, where are you? Thanks a lot for inviting me. I'm in the federal capital, Buenos Aires. And that's it. Well, happy to have you. So, I suggest you start commenting the movie you've made for the global manifesto of Anthropocene. Yes, the video clip you've seen the eclipsed ones speaks about ancestors that are not human. They don't have the same philosophy, so they speak with us through shamanism, for instance. So this is the kind of translation of their viewpoint. The climate refugees don't have actually the opportunity to speak up, to be heard. So I decided to take a specific viewpoint, and I imagine that some people have their opinion about the type of community that speaks in my video clip. So I wanted to pay attention to other people who are not human, and we are in connection with, in an interdependence, and the way they can participate in the debate in order not to have only human participants in the debate. So this is a way of asking questions as if we were speaking not only about oceans, but trying to be ourselves the oceans who are victims of climate change. Germano, you're here too, I think. So I'd like to give you the floor. I don't know if you want to speak about the same things, but after watching your video clip, I thought of common things with living being displaced, and the issue of responsibility of environmental issues that are not only local but more global, and to make a link with the different video clips. Where are you, Germano? I'm in the south of Brazil. Happy to see you. So maybe could you be more specific about your production and your message? First thing, sorry, my dog is by me. So the first thing I want to say is that I live in Brazil in a time where we have the head of the country a negationist. So it's a very dangerous situation now for Brazil. And furthermore, we're faced with the coronavirus, and now we know that we are in danger because we are exposed to other types of risks, in particular environmental ones. And I live in a country where the president says that there is no fire in the Amazon forest, that the forest is not being destroyed by projects. So what is dangerous is to have a government that doesn't support us, a government that want more space for industrial farming. We are now in a country in a very difficult situation because Brazil is going through this time when members of parliament support the idea that we need more space for cattle and less space for the Amazon forest, that diversity doesn't need huge space, and they act without being afraid of being sentenced by any international court. In Brazil, we really are going through times of crisis. People who worry about the future here, people who think that we should take care of the future, a future for everyone, people who are aware of climate change are not listened to, are not heard, and we are entangled in a system that is not sustainable. So I'm speaking about Brazil, and hear me about the fact that the situation is really risky. There is no public policy. We're waiting for any support from other countries. We are begging for your support. And I know that the international presence of Brazil is not good for the time being. And I know that the whole world can help us, but apparently we're not brave enough for our future. First of all, maybe I would like to make a link between both of your testimonies. I think they're connected because, Pablo, you've spoken about eclipsed people, the displacement of living beings. Living beings have to adapt more and more to difficult situations, climate change that will be irreversible. And you, Germano, you point out the fact that this dynamics of change isolate people, and they're beyond local fight. It should be a global fight. So I've got a question, and I'm listening to your point of view. My question was for Pablo, but Germano can also answer. How can we have an international fight without making this fight colonial? So it's an international challenge, but it is located in specific areas. So how can we have a collective answer to a local problem that has global consequences? So Pablo, if you want to start. On the one hand, I can say that my work was more focused on non-human displaced beings. So also how to have a global support without having a colonial support. Well, I think we should analyze local problems, act locally with local communities. We don't need another type of globalization, or maybe we need something that is more that has less impact. I don't think there should be a horizontal way of thinking, a horizontal understanding, because there are different cosmologies. For instance, I can quote Eduardo Vieira de Castro, an anthropologist from Brazil, but with deep connections with France. We cannot decolonize thinking, because thinking is per se colonial. So this is the core between different types of cultures we want to change. But at the same time, our project cannot be translated because it is intimately connected with the bodies. So I think the point is not to understand, actually, to let things go in order to see how humankind can act locally, ecologically, instead of thinking of a global solution. I'm still writing my thesis, but I'm developing this viewpoint. I think it would be easier to have the same fights in the global south instead of having something designed in the north and applied in the south. Germano, you're also calling for support from other countries after describing a difficult political situation. Do you share Pablo's viewpoint? No. If you want the fight to be international without it being colonial, I think it's impossible. I'm speaking from Brazil, and I'm in touch with reality, the way Europe colonized our country. I was also in Europe, and I know the history, and the European traditions are still in our daily lives in Brazil. So if you want the fight to be international without it being colonial, I think it is impossible. President Macron, for instance, now is trying to connect with our president in order to protect the environment, but this is definitely impossible because President Bolsonaro is definitely against protecting the environment. He advocates for another method that aims to have more space for farming, for cattle, for producing meat, and I'm a vegetarian for the record. So this is also a problem for me. We are creating more space for cattle, and we are obliterating the Amazon forest. And this is something that echoes colonization by Europe. When Portugal was here, the purpose was to develop through colonization with people from Portugal to grab spaces for extracting wealth, resources, and this is still the same way of doing. So would it be to the question that is it possible to have an international fight without being colonial? No, because Europe keeps on thinking that they should go to Brazil to protect nature. Not a long time ago, there was a government that wanted to protect the environment and that wanted to keep this objective of taking care of the lungs of the earth. And we wanted to be responsible in that sense, to give the possibility to Earth to breathe through the Amazon. But in 2016, there was a coup, and I call it a coup, and that wasn't acknowledged by European countries, for instance. So Bolsonaro, a far-right president, is now destroying the environment, denying reality, not protecting the environment. We can see that all the wildfires, I could see the impact on climate, I could see smoke in the area where I live, although I live 7,000 kilometers from the Amazon forest. So and there are leaders, political leaders, who want to protect the environment, but it's very difficult for them to be heard. So we're a bit lost in Brazil now, and when we speak about internationalizing the fight, when we speak about colonization, Brazil is a country that is at the center of the global ecology, but we don't want any neo-colonization. We don't want Europe to come back to Brazil with the same approach they had when they colonized our continent, and actually they're not acting at all.
So, I'm not saying this conversation isn't interesting. I just wanted to hand the mic to Castillo. You are in Venezuela. Do you understand French or English?
¿Puede solamente hablar un poquito más fuerte? Enchanté. Vous êtes où, Ocarina?
Me gustaría poder decir que de la cosa estamos...
On a un problème de conexión.
Me parece que hemos perdido la conexión. Sí, falla un poco. Igual se apaga la cámara.
Vous pouvez recommencer? Désolé.
¿Ahora?
Oui.
¿Oui?
¿Puede volver? Sí.
Que me gustaría insistir un poco.
Usted puede hablar mientras traduzco yo al francés, ¿vale? Señora, puede hablar en español y al mismo tiempo vamos a traducir al francés.
¿Ahora?
Sí, ahora puede hablar, claro. Y yo voy a hablar en francés, soy el intérprete.
Desde Venezuela me gustaría... ¿Sí?
Sí, puede ir adelante.
Y me gustaría...
Señora, escúcheme, yo soy el intérprete y yo voy a explicar en francés lo
que han dicho los compañeros que han expuesto.
Ocarina.
Ocarina, perdón.
Ya, que no pasa nada por la
Decía que
traducción.
me gustaría poder, desde Venezuela, tomando en consideración las diferentes interpretaciones que durante todos estos días hemos estado escuchando, me gustaría insistir en que en el caso venezolano, además de la problemática del antropoceno, estamos enfrentando de una manera muy especial tres de las características más importantes del antropoceno. En primer lugar, la crisis ecológica y fundamentalmente el desastre del deterioro que se está haciendo en el Amazonas venezolano a través del arco minero. El desastre ecológico, humano, con los pueblos originarios, con las culturas, con los recursos, con la agricultura en el arco minero. En segundo lugar, la crisis humanitaria y sobre todo la crisis alimentaria, que está generando cifras rojas extremas de hambre y de desnutrición. Y en tercer lugar, la crisis sociocultural que está expresándose quizás en una de las más importantes diásporas del comienzo del siglo XXI. Una diáspora de venezolanos que no tiene fin, que ni siquiera el coronavirus ha podido contener. Entonces, para nosotros es muy importante que podamos enfrentar todas estas cosas y poner en juego nuestra resiliencia, nuestra resistencia, y nuestra creatividad y nuestra capacidad para poder seguir adelante y hacernos oír también en el resto del mundo. Muchas gracias.
Merci Ocarina. Du coup, ça me permet
Muchas gracias, Ocarina.
sur une conjoncture qui est peut-être semblable aux
So maybe we could talk about something which is common to all the three countries we have with us tonight. You mentioned the overexploitation of the Amazon forest, which has ecological and social consequences, and which raises questions in terms of the links between countries and the relationships between countries. You can't consider an ecological area as a national area. It's a global, international problem. And it's interesting to see in your presentation, you mentioned the significant displacement of populations in Brazil and in other countries in Latin America. How can we link together these different issues to try and weave new dynamics during the Anthropocene, which are collective, even if they are specific to each territory?
Pablo, est-ce que je peux vous demander peut-être de revenir un peu sur la question du...
Pablo, can I ask you to talk again about the question of displaced populations and the questions you mentioned about human collective that creates displacement not of just humans but of living beings, and the consequences for ecosystems and for social dynamics. Why did you talk about this topic, and why was it central to your work? What is central to my work is interdependence. It's the links between countries that we inhabit. So we need to think about the displacement of humans, and I think it's useful to think about policies on a greater scale, on a wider scale, Because countries are not identical, yes, the issues are not always the same in each country. So what are the strategies that need to be put in place in one country or another? So the question wasn't entirely clear to me.
Pardon, moi je vous ai pas entendu entièrement.
I didn't hear you very well. We're trying to connect to Cristian in Chile also.
Can you hear me now? I think my connection has been reestablished. So can you hear me properly?
Oui.
All right.
On vous entend bien maintenant.
So we turn that off, the WhatsApp. Thank you so much. Well, I guess what resonated in me after the questions, it's definitely tied to what is happening to me now as I try to connect. How do we build a world together, a world that we can share and that we can discuss? I think that's a real challenge for this new epoch. Of course, the technologies that allow us to have this meeting now are related to all the technologies that allow us to share a common climate and to speak about global warming and phenomena such as that, or even to have the possibility of naming a new geological epoch by identifying a surface that is homogeneous across all the planet, a single isochronous surface that it's that can be identified everywhere. And of course, not everyone has this technology. I'm in a rural area. I had to travel due to family circumstances. And at the moment, I don't have the means to share that common world with you. But even if we manage to share that common world with you, with everyone, which I think is a real struggle, the moment we do it through this media, through this form of interaction, somewhat we lose the environment in which we are embedded. And I think that paradox is part of what is to know the climate and what is to know phenomena, global phenomena, scientific phenomena, such as climate change, global warming, or the Anthropocene. To know that is somewhat to be in a planetary thinking, divorced from everyday interactions with specific environments, or even also the specific social circumstances and material circumstances that people have to struggle with. Well, something that has moved the place I'm in, Santiago, Chile, is the recent social strikes and movements, social movements that have paralyzed before the pandemic, the country. People complaining about social issues that, of course, interlinked with climate issues and with the Anthropocene. In a way, for me, to tackle this, it's undoubtedly connected to social justice. Social justice, it's a key aspect, and something that thinking of that young generation, that it's of course raising their hands and asking for a social justice that is connected to environmental justice. It was one of the key elements that emerged from that movement. Is that somewhat for them, and I see that in my students, the horizon is somewhat limited. You can see further ahead. For my generation, and I guess for your generations as well, in your case, most of the speakers I have seen today, the struggle was to have too many possibilities. But nowadays there seems to be no possibilities. And that to me is something moving, and that I think we have to solve somewhat. And for that, we need more than just the diagnosis built through global science. We need more than just the diagnosis of global warming, climate change, species extinction, etc., etc., ocean acidification, all things that depend on connecting instruments and measurements throughout the world. Somewhat we need to give a taste of what it would be to feel, I think, a different environment, a different life. Because this young generation somewhat feel there is no future ahead of them, that the horizon has a limit. And I think it's very unfair to stop with just the diagnosis. I think we need more for the future. We need to propose a new planet. And in order to build that, I believe we need to resonate with what it is to feel immersed in a planet that is heterogeneous in its core. It is, of course, not the same for me to be connected here in this rural area in Chile than to be connected elsewhere. Thank you so much.
Merci Cristian. On parlait quand on essayait d'introduire un peu la conversation avec vous tout à l'heure.
When we tried to start the conversation with you earlier, we were talking about the material nature of the Anthropocene, which is something you're working on. And there again, you are pointing again to the need for a new world or a new understanding of the world. Is that something? We understand that you want to bring this notion to the younger generation, where you try and find new ways of understanding the world. Is that linked to educational questions which can bring us all together and give meaning to a manifesto such as that which we are trying to create today, which I've been working on for a dozen hours since this morning?
Bueno, sin duda, si te sigo bien, hay un tema muy fuerte con la educación. Y a mí lo que me preopa es que el discurso...
¿En inglés puede ser?
Sorry, I moved from...
No te
sorry, you were speaking in French, and I moved to Spanish. I should carry on in English. The thing is, for me, is that so much about the Anthropocene, it's driven by the image of justice, that we need to identify who is responsible, and somewhat we arrive late. Somewhat we don't manage to propose a new alternative. But that alternative is not just a fiction, an utopia. It has to be felt, has to be sensible in a way. So all the image of responsibility to me is troubling, and I think we should strive more to responsivity, or to what Donna Haraway will call responsibility, the ability to respond to a new world that is constantly changing. And of course, that response has to be always anew. It has to be always tied to the particularities of a particular territory, to where it is to feel immersed in that territory, and of course to the material capabilities that people in different territories might have in relation to other people, and of course in relation to other species as well. So I think in order to build a common world, in order to build a manifesto for the world, an Anthropocene manifesto, for a global Anthropocene manifesto, we need to realize first the radical heterogeneity of the planet we all share.
Merci. Est-ce que vous, Germano, aussi, dans votre quotidien...
So do you, Germano, in your day-to-day life, in the way you understand and view the environment in your struggles, is a manifesto like the one we are trying to create, is that a tool that might be useful to you? So the first thing I would say is that, once again, we're talking about a European construct whereby the Europeans are coming to tell us how to do things. Unfortunately, we don't have the means, we don't have a way of telling you that what solutions we want to provide. Since 2016, we've been ruled by a right-wing or extreme right-wing government, which is completely ignoring climate change. and its impact on Brazil, we need to be able to tell them. It's hard. It's a bit naive to think that Europeans can tell us how to do these things in such a political climate. So telling us things from a platform, your platform in Europe, is quite naive. You need to have a good relationship with the countries in question to be able to do something. And what we see in Brazil today is that we don't have a good relationship with Europe. We don't have good international relations with the countries around us. So I can't see how we can put in place the actions we need to protect the Amazon forest. And I admit to you that every day we see the Amazon catching fire, not far from me. And it's something that's very difficult to witness every day. Every day we see animals burnt to a cinder. It's very hard to deal with, but I can't see how Europe can say without really acting on our economy. I've got nothing against Macron, but he said recently, we're not going to buy soya from Brazil because of deforestation. And to echo what you say, the idea was not, I expressed myself poorly perhaps, the idea is not to say that Europe was going to provide the solutions you need. What we want is for this manifesto to be something more horizontal, more organic. We have spoken to around 50 countries, and the idea is not at all to say that the World Anthropocene Manifesto is based in Lyon, but to say that it is based in every country. We've been to Japan, the Gaza Strip, Germany, in all sorts of places. What the idea is to see how dialogue between all these countries can take us to a place where we better understand the challenges so that we can better find more effective solutions and establish synergies and ask the question, what will these discussions allow us to do? Because sometimes we feel a little bit powerless when we talk together and say to each other. It's very difficult, which is why one of the main questions we've been asking since this morning is, what is the point of talking? What is the objective and why are we doing this? So that's really the meaning behind my question that I asked you and Pablo earlier. Why talk? Why engage in dialogue? And from an even more sensitive perspective, we as humans are gaining awareness of issues that are at the forefront of people's minds in other countries. This allows us to approach things differently. The context is different, the challenges might be different in other countries, but we can share our points of view. And that's this event we are involved in today is the start of something, but that's really something we wanted to talk about and discuss so that we can build something collectively. We still have a few minutes. Time is running out fast. We will have one more session after this one with more countries involved. Ocarina, are you still there? Ocarina, would you like to say a few words to conclude, and then Pablo could speak afterwards? Ocarina, are you there? Would you like to say a few words in conclusion?
Pardon. ¿Le gustaría decir una última palabra?
Agradecer la oportunidad de aprender tanto, de tantos, y poder seguir haciendo nuevas propuestas hacia el futuro. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. Pablo, peut-être que je peux vous passer la parole?
So, Pablo, could you maybe say a few words? So I'd like to thank you, first of all. I think that, yes, we need to talk about the issue of making people responsible and placing them in positions of responsibility for taking the action we need. And that is something which will allow us to move forward. So we need to talk about what responsibility could be placed on people for acting differently in order to progress. Thank you to all of you. Ocarina, Pablo, Germano, Cristian, thank you very much. Have a good day.